Get strong.
Hey guys, this is such a great day. Even in the middle of everything that's going on, there is a way to overcome because Jesus made us to be overcomers. And I am so pleased that I get to bring to you an amazing guest that's going to help us and help our daughters get out of that stress and anxiety that basically is like just so rampant in our society today with all the situations that are going on, all the circumstances. She's going to help not just for us to get out of that, but also help our daughters get out of that as well. So Sissy Goff, she is amazing. Let me just tell you a little bit about her. She serves as the Director of Child and Adolescent Counseling for Daystar Counseling Ministries. She's worked there for over 25 years, helping girls and their families, and has just written a book called Brave, a teen's girl's guide to beating worry and anxiety. And I have girls. They have two teenagers and two are an adult. Two are adults, and I tell you something about girls and anxiety. It's a big deal. So I was so excited to bring you on, Sissy, so you could just share your wisdom, because sometimes parents feel stuck. We feel stuck with the anxiety and worry, and then we see it so rampant in with our girls, with the
Yes.
teenage girls, with our preteens, with those precious children of God that we just love so much. We're like, we got to stop this right now. So thank you so much for hanging out with us.
Well, I'm so glad to, and I love your heart in it. I'm with you. We got to stop it. Yes.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay,
We're
great.
supposed to be, I think about it like Jesus said, even the gates of hell will not prevail against us.
Yeah.
Sometimes we run from things that scare us instead of running into it and rescuing. And we're supposed to be like charging the gates of hell, which is the worry, the fear, anxiety, exactly what the enemy loves to create, and rescuing people out of it. So we're going to do that today. We are going to rescue
Good.
people out of that worry and anxiety. But I
Sounds
need to
awesome.
ask you, tell me in your experience, because you have just a heart for girls.
Mm.
Why do you see the worry and anxiety so prevalent among girls?
That's a great question. And it definitely is. Girls are twice as likely as boys to deal with anxiety. And pre-pandemic, we were looking at 1 in 4. Now we're looking at 1 in 3. And so you kept, your word prevalent. It is so prevalent. It's an epidemic in America today. And it was before the pandemic. So it's that much worse. And interestingly enough, the research says that not only do girls experience it more, but they actually get treated less for it. So we are more likely to take boys in for counseling instead of girls. And some of that I think is that for girls who are anxious, I talk a lot about temperament in the book, and girls who are anxious are really kind, they're conscientious, they try hard, they care a lot. They're like the coolest girls ever.
Yeah.
And those things, especially at school, those things are rewarded. We reinforce those things sometimes inadvertently. So those girls not only fly below the radar in terms of getting in trouble, whereas an anxious boy is probably acting out and getting in trouble, but she's below the radar and getting accolades for that part of it. So we're a little confused because typically she rages at home and not at school. That is very normal for girls. But I think at the same time, we just don't know that's what's fueling it so often.
But is it about the temperament, or is it about just as women we're kind of like engineered more to go to that worry and anxiety? Like why do you think is it a gender thing? What's going on?
It's all of it. Yes. I think
All of it. It's like all of it.
It's working against us.
Yeah. How do we
Yes.
separate that, right?
Yeah. I do think so. I read an article once that I have always clung to that says that when something goes wrong in a boy's world, he blames someone else. And when something goes wrong in a girl's world or a woman's world, we blame ourselves. And so that's a part of it too. It's like culturally, it's internally, and then technology is obviously a piece of it, and genetics, and we're in a pandemic. So it's like everything imaginable is kind of creating this perfect storm right now for girls, but for us too as grown-ups.
Yeah, talk about that for a minute. So us two as grown-ups, I remember. I'm just gonna tell you, Sissy. I used to have so much anxiety
Really?
when I first started having kids, and just all the
Hmm.
worry and the fear. It would feel like I was in like a vice grip in my chest. Like I remember going to
Yes.
bed and feeling like there was like a barbell on my chest because
It's a
it would
great
just be this
description.
anxiety that I carried around all the time, worrying about my kids, worrying about my money, worrying about my marriage, worrying about everything, worrying about why I'm worrying, like all the all the things. And I
Yes.
remember one night I just could not take it anymore. And I remember it was another sleepless night, just like I'd spent so many other sleepless nights. Got up, went outside, and we were living in Arizona at the time, and just opened the door. It's like I can't be afraid anymore. Like I
Mm,
just lived in fear, and I just opened the door, stood outside. I was like, God, what all this stuff I'm holding, I'm letting it go. I just let it go right now. And I looked up at the stars that were so clear in that desert sky, and I thought back about Abraham and how he was being positioned to be the father of nations, right?
mm.
And God had to lead him out to look at the stars and put things into perspective and say, look, I created all this and you don't think I can carry your worry.
Yeah,
And it shifted that night. And how can we
it's
help
beautiful.
women? Because I know what that's like. And you probably have such a heart for this because you probably know what that's like. How do we help women get out of this so then we can empower our daughters to do the same?
I think part of it, and it's exactly what you did. I mean, I think it's recognizing that's really what's going on because the way that I think of worry and anxiety different is that worry is, worry's kind of pervasive. We can do it to ourselves sometimes, but it comes and goes. And anxiety, I tell kids, it's like the one loop roller coaster at the fair. We get something stuck in our head and we cannot get it out.
Mm,
And the confusing part of it for adults, kids basically I could do like a timeline and say for each age in a child's life, this is what they loop about the most because it's the scariest thing they can imagine happening developmentally. So something bad happening to their mom and dad, and then you would not believe the amount of kids we have at Daystar who are afraid of throwing up, and then it becomes academic, and I mean it just shifts. And then when we get to being grown-ups, the thing is, like, I can look at a child who has no stomach issues and say the fact that you can't stop thinking about throwing up is anxiety. There's no other explanation for it. But for us, if we're looping about our kids, if we're looping about money, if we're looping about our marriage, it feels real. And I think we give it credence and sometimes even more attention than we don't learn to fight it. We don't know to fight it because we don't know that we're stuck because it's anxiety taking over. We think it's really valid because it is, but we don't know how to get out of it ourselves. So I sit with so many adults and will say, I'll even feel you know this too. When someone's super anxious, you almost feel it in the like
oh,
vibe of the
oh my
room.
word. You read
Yeah,
that energy, it's like you are so keyed up.
totally. And so
Wow. It's like
I'll
that Ferris Bueller line. Do you remember Ferris Bueller?
yes,
Where
of
it's like
course.
Cameron is so keyed up. If you stuck a piece of coal up his butt in a week, you'd have a diamond. Like so keyed up, man. Just like unclench for a second. Just breathe.
Yes.
You can sense it.
Yes. So I will sit with parents and the child is there for anxiety and I can tell that one of the parents is anxious just sitting in the room with them. And I'll try and be really breezy about it. Like, so do you happen to have any family history for anxiety? And so often they'll say, no, we don't have any. But, I mean, you're younger than I am, but we weren't in counseling, many of us, when we were growing up. Our parents certainly weren't in counseling. We weren't talking about all this stuff. So we don't know. And maybe we just became more productive and that was our coping skill. And so now we're like off the charts type A, but
Yeah.
that's really anxiety driven,
But
or we have
we
a
don't know that. We
right.
think that like the reason these it's not that these parents are lying, is
No,
that they don't see that it's an issue because they've lived with it so long.
so long. And they're trying as hard as they can. And of course they worry about their kids.
Yeah.
What good parent doesn't?
Right.
So, we're kind of reinforcing it too.
That is amazing. And I'm sure there's some people listening and watching right now who are like, oh my gosh, maybe I am in that loop. Like maybe I've
Yeah.
just spent so much of my life, it has just become a pattern. I had a
Yes.
client the other day who was like very sick. She's still tuned into our session together, which I can, congratulate her on. Did a good job as she was feeling very ill. But what happened was we discovered the reason she felt so ill is because of the anxiety in an impending situation that she was walking into. As soon as we addressed that anxiety and we were able to work through it, she's fine.
Isn't
It's
that
amazing
amazing?
what we live with by
Yes.
default.
Yes. Yes. And kids are the same way. I mean, the hard thing is they get anxious and then their body takes over. They're anxious about being sick, their body takes over and then they get sick.
Of course.
It's yeah,
Yeah,
just a
what did Job
self-fulfilling
say? The
prophecy.
very yeah, yeah, we are always prophesying our future. Even Job said the
Yes.
very thing I feared has happened. And so we're always
Yes.
going around and the anxiety, whatever we're so worried about, we will actually draw to us. So
Yes.
how can these people, like if, listening today, watching right now, they're like, how do I get out of this loop? Like I can't help my child when I'm so, stuck in this loop and I've just created a pattern over it over days, months, years, decades. How do I get out of this loop? Whatever that anxiety is.
Well, I'm going to go really practical on us for a second,
I
but I
like
mean,
practical.
good, good, good. Because and you know this, but I mean, the first thing that happens when we get anxious is our body, our sympathetic nervous system kicks into gear, and it really can make us sick if we don't know how to stop it. And the longer it goes, the harder it is to stop the progression. And so what happens is our amygdala, the part of our brain that dictates fight or flight, actually takes over in those moments. So our blood flow leaves the prefrontal cortex, which helps us think rationally and manage our emotions,
Right.
and it goes to the amygdala. And so, like parents will say, I cannot reason with my kids when they get to this place. They're like a crazy person. Well, right, because
You're
the
right.
thinking part of their brain isn't even working. And same with us. And so we can't even get to a rational place until we can calm our bodies back down. So that's where things like mindfulness, deep breathing. I mean, I do square breathing in my office all the time with kids where it's just a way to, you draw a line and pause in the corner for 3 seconds and exhale and draw the next line and pause for 3 seconds and over and over and over. With boys, we call it combat breathing because it sounds cooler. But, 20 seconds of deep breathing resets the amygdala. So that's where I would say we want to always start. And then we want to move to some practical other things to get us out of the loop.
Mm, and what would be so like deep breathing and that mindfulness and just first of all, and I think one thing is what I often will see in my clients is we don't want to feel the anxiety. And so we get anxious
Right.
about being anxious. And so the more,
Yes.
I mean, the more you resist an emotion, the more it's just going to be so much more present. And so first of all, realizing if you're listening to this or watching this and you've dealt with anxiety, be gracious to yourself, be compassionate
Mm,
with yourself. Like, it's
yes. I
okay.
love that
That
you said
doesn't
that, Hannah.
say anything about you. It just means like maybe your thoughts are used to going there, and that's okay.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, I love that you're saying that because I have never had as many parents in my office crying as I have in the pandemic. And I
Right.
think we all feel overwhelmed. We all feel anxious. We all feel like we're not doing it right, whatever it is that we think we're supposed to be doing. And so giving grace to ourselves, I think, is one of the best things we can be doing right now anyway. But
Yeah.
yes, especially if we're anxious, like that's okay. I'm going to figure this out. I'm capable because believing that we're capable helps ward off some of the anxiety too.
I love that. We are more than overcomers. We are totally
Yes.
capable of doing this. And instead of
Yes.
resisting it, like it's okay to feel it. Just kind of like so sometimes I think if we get more curious than condemning about
Mm,
our emotions,
that's
we
a
get
great
we can
statement.
get more empowered than disempowered. So just get really curious, like, it's kind of like, there you are. I'm not
Yeah.
afraid of you. It's okay. It's
Yeah.
okay. And just let it work
I
its
can
way.
breathe through it.
You
Yes.
can breathe through this.
Yes.
It's like one of those contractions when you're delivering a baby. Like you
Yes.
are delivering a miracle. You're delivering freedom. You're delivering abundance in your life. So just breathe through it. It's okay. You're going to get
Yeah.
to the other side of this and say, I didn't die.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. One of the exercises I read about in my research was pretending like your thoughts or your anxiety are like a little leaf floating on the water, just floating right by you. So it's there and you're just going to let it go and not, because we lock down and then we get more anxious.
So true. And we can say, oh, here it is again,
Yep.
and just start down the spiral.
Yes. Instead of here it is again and it's going to pass and I'm going to be okay.
Ooh, that's good. That's good. So let's follow it. Don't leave it like here it is again. Here it is again, and it's going to pass.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
that's so powerful. And then I think once we're able to be compassionate with ourselves and be able to work through that, how then can we help our daughters? What because you're right, like reasoning sometimes isn't effective. So what are some things we can do to help our daughters, to help those girls in our life that are dealing with this anxiety as well?
Well, I definitely think putting tools in front of them that are practical that can make a difference. But I would say, from a parenting standpoint, you know, the two biggest parenting strategies in light of having kids who are anxious are escape and avoidance. So we step in and, we love our kids. They're in a situation that's creating a lot of anxiety. And so we pull them out
Mm,
rather than letting them stay in it and know that they're going to be okay and that they're going to get through it and be stronger on the other side. And
wow.
so I think, rather than stepping in and pulling them out, communicating, you can do this. You've got the tools, helping remind them of those tools, especially early on. And then we're going to take it one step at a time and work through it, because ultimately that's what we want them to believe. I came up with, in the parenting book, Raising Worry Free Girls, the definition I came up with after all the books I read about anxiety was: anxiety is an overestimation of the problem and an underestimation of ourselves.
Oh, you got to say that again because that is powerful.
Anxiety is an overestimation of the problem and an underestimation of ourselves. And so when we pull them out, we're saying, yep, it's too big. You can't do it. I've got to step in and fix it for you. Rather than, let's talk about what you can do next. You've got this. You're doing great. You're so smart. Remember last time? Remember the last brave thing you did? Because you did something yesterday, or you did something last week, because they're not going to remember on their own.
Right.
And so reminding them and empowering them with tools and helping them know they can get through it rather than rescuing, I think, is one of the biggest gifts we can give girls.
Wow. That is so powerful. And just looking back, I can see the times that I'm like, this is too hard. And what
Mm,
we're doing, I want to call this out. What we're doing is we don't do anything unless we feel like doing it.
mm,
Like we do everything because we feel like doing it. So something about that, we wanted to feel like a loving parent. We wanted to
yes.
not feel the stress about what our child was going through. We wanted to feel like everything was okay. So sometimes we make those choices based upon what we want to feel as a parent instead of
It's so
how
true.
we can equip our children to rise up and be warriors and be empowered and be strong and brave in this world.
That's a great statement. Yes. And it's more about what they need than what we feel.
Yeah. Oh, that's so
Yeah.
good. Yeah,
Yeah.
because and we could do what makes us feel good, but that doesn't always lead to a better future. It might be that
No.
band-aid solution. And okay, it's okay now. Things are stable now, but are they? Because there's going to be another situation. We can't control that. There's going to be other circumstances.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And just,
Absolutely. Because like we talked about at the beginning, anxiety is tied to temperament. And so I always, in my office, it's kind of like whack-a-mole. It pops up in one area and then 2 years later it pops up as another thing, because it's part of that. God made them to be so kind and try so hard. And it's just hard to turn the volume down. And so the same tools work however it manifests. So the more we get them in those situations and give them the tools, the better equipped they are the next time it pops up.
I love that you said remind them.
Mm,
So remind them of the last time they were brave, remind them of the last time they were able to come up with a solution, the last time they went into something that was scary and they lived through it, you
yes.
know? Because our brain just freaks out and thinks we're gonna die.
Right.
You know?
Right.
I mean,
Yes.
our brain is like it's called the reptilian brain because we think we're gonna die. It's like, okay,
Right.
and then we get married to this idea of anxiety that is keeping us safe and alive. So the more we can understand why we do things, the more we can take authority over that. And it's God even tells us like, call me into remembrance of my word. And I
Mm,
think why God tells us in his word, call me into remembrance, it's not so we can remind God what he said, but it's so we can remind ourselves of the promise in the word, which I think is so
yes.
powerful. Is sometimes we need to step out of the circumstances, step out of our fear, get so grounded in the word, spend more time in the word than we do in the world. And then that can overshadow whatever in the world is creating that sense of fear or anxiety or worry. And so when we remind ourselves about the promises of God, wait, he's made me the head, not the tail. It's maybe the top and not the bottom. Like I'm just stand still and watch the victory. Like those kind of things. We
Yes.
remind ourselves of that.
Yes.
It's almost like that deep breathing in the word. We can shut off that fear response and be like, wait a minute, who am I really? Let me look in the word and remember who I am.
Yes. And I think it's so much easier as an adult to believe those things are true about us than they are about the kids that we love. It's just
Mm.
so much
Tell me
harder to
about
cling
that.
to those
Tell me
truths.
about that.
Well, I think it's where we get anxious about the kids that we love. They're the things that matter the most to us. And so the truth just goes out the window rather than suffering produces perseverance, perseverance, character, and character, hope. And that's what God is doing, what He's creating in kids in this moment. All the chapter of Romans that talks about this pregnant creation and that God is birthing good things. I mean, I just think those are the kind of truths I want parents to cling to, not just for us because we need as adults, but for them too. And and to be, in this work of counseling kids, I'm seeing those things being born in kids every day, even in a pandemic. And so I definitely want parents to hear that.
Oh, that's so good. Like, to believe it over your kids as well, because sometimes we'll
Yes.
believe it over ourselves, you're right, and then we think, "But now the kids are my responsibility."
Right. Right. And we're more worried about them than we are about ourselves.
Yeah, yeah, because you said it, we're good parents, so we have associated being a good parent with taking on the fear and the worry and the anxiety, and
Yes.
just from living in that space, I can tell you it doesn't work. You become
Yeah.
less of an effective parent when you
Mhm.
carry around that constant loop. When you're stuck in that loop, you don't become as effective and powerful as a parent as you can when you're able to step out of it and say, wait a minute, God has promises over them as well. They are
Mhm.
equipped, they can succeed, they can be the top and not the bottom, they can be the head and not the tail. God's no respecter of persons. It's not like He can do that for me and not for them. So when we
Yes.
can understand that and communicate it to them, and I think that may be the hard thing, is how do we communicate that message of hope in a time of pandemic? Or you know what? It doesn't even have to be a pandemic, Sissy. You've seen it before. You'll
Right.
see it after. So in
Right.
a time with circumstantial stress, how do we communicate that sense of hope to our children?
Well, I think it depends on where they are developmentally. Little ones, I think we can speak it over them a lot. I love having them memorize a verse themselves. If they're a
Yeah,
worrier, picking something that they can remind themselves of, you can say, say your verse to me. We can pray with them on the way to school. All of those things. I mean, we can listen to Mandisa Overcomer in the car, and sing and
right.
dance with them. And then when they get to be adolescents, they don't want to do that stuff with us anymore so
Oh,
much.
no way.
No way.
No way.
Yes. And so I think then I mean, my two favorite words with adolescents are empathy and questions. I think, especially right now, I mean, again, not in a pandemic. I would have said this pre pandemic. I don't believe there's ever been a time it's been harder to be a teenager, especially a teenage girl, than today. And so, even just saying that, like, I can't imagine. I didn't grow up with social media. I didn't grow up with technology. I didn't grow up with the pressure that you feel. I didn't grow up with COVID.
Yeah,
Tell me what that's like for you. I mean, I think when we're listening and really hearing and asking them questions, they feel so respected and feel like their voice matters,
yeah.
which helps with anxiety. And then I think, to ask questions, but with teenagers, I would say ask the questions. They get so uncomfortable with face to face intimacy. They get so awkward about it. Ask the questions when you're driving the car and both looking straight ahead, or you're on a walk, or you're making a meal together, something like that. And then tell me what's something you're learning. Tell me a truth you've discovered. Tell me a time you've been brave lately, because you are. And that we remind them of those truths. And I mean, I think just like you've been doing in this conversation, you've been throwing out scripture in a really subtle way, but very true and powerful way. And I think the same thing that we can even playfully say, well, flipping a pancake, suffering produces perseverance, perseverance, character. And where does it go from there? That we're not as intense reminding them because that's when they run away, but
Right.
that we're still speaking the truth of who God is and who He's made them to be over their lives daily.
Yeah. That's so good. It's funny because I always teach my kids that they are constantly prophesying their future.
Mm,
And so whenever they say something negative, I'm like, all right, whatever you say. Like,
that's great.
oh, I won't be able to finish this report in time. Okay, whatever you say. They're like, no, like it becomes a joke, but it's like, you're the one speaking it. It's like, I will
That's
take it.
funny.
You want someone to agree with you, I'll agree with you, whatever you say. And so, like, just being able to see, but they have to see it modeled in you. They have
Right.
to see you not riddled and
Yes.
operating out of fear, but you're
Yes.
operating out of faith. And when they can see that living example, then you're in a position where you can help them along and discover that.
Definitely.
Mm.
Yes. I love that.
I love what you're
Yeah.
doing. I love it.
Wow. You
Tell me,
too.
tell me why you titled your book Brave.
Because I would say, outside of the pandemic, I really, in 28 years of counseling, I have never felt like girls believed that they were brave less, which is crazy in this time of empowering women and all the things we're talking about. But I don't believe that's who they think they are anymore. And I've never felt like they needed to hear the message more. And so it felt like, this is exactly what I wanted to say because I wanted them to believe that's true about who they are. My favorite verse about girls is Psalm 144:12 that says, "May our sons in their youth be like plants full grown, our daughters like corner pillars cut for the structure of a palace."
Woo!
And I mean, corner pillars are beautiful and they're strong and they're holding up so much, which was interesting when you were talking about that night out under the stars. That's one of the things you said, like, I'm holding so much. And every girl we know, every woman we know right now is holding up so much relationally, life, professionally. I mean, all the different things. You're holding up so much if you're listening to this as a woman. And so we want girls to feel brave and strong and capable and powerful and loved and delighted in and all those things. And so that's really my hope with this book is that's going to instill that truth from another voice, really echoing the same things as a parent that you're saying to your kids. That's what we talk about in counseling all the time. That's what we do. We just say the same things that you're saying. We're just a new voice. And so my hope is this little brave book is the same exact thing.
So beautiful. Thank you so much, Sissy. Now, how can people get more of you? Like they've got some great tips. They know how to work with their own anxiety. They know how to, practically how to do that, how to help our kids. But to take it further, like how can they find out more? Of course, like pick up her book, Brave, A Teen Girl's Guide. But make sure you do that. But also, where can they go to get more of you?
So raisingboysandgirls.com is our website. It's got a lot of information on there. But on Instagram, I kind of function under two different accounts. One is my name, Sissy Goff, and the other is Raising Boys and Girls. And mine is more kind of heavy parenting girl content. And the Raising Boys and Girls is both. And it's with my colleague, David Thomas. But in both places, I'm trying to be as current as I can with what kids are dealing with and how we can help and just trying to put out as much helpful information and videos and all those things as I can. So I would say follow both of those accounts if you're on Instagram. Facebook, we're trying to do the same thing. I'm more active on Instagram and then the website are all places.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Sissy. You've
Yeah,
given
Hannah.
us so much amazing information to
Well,
not
it's so
only
fun to talk to
it
you.
was so much fun, so much fun. And we can just, now we can move forward. And not only can we be brave, but I think it's going to take a lot of bravery to step in and help our daughters as well. So thank you for helping us do
Love
that.
that.
Thank you for blessing us like crazy.
Thank you.
Be strong.